Hope you all are enjoying Slice so far. For anyone who traveled in from outside of Seattle, I want to give you a warm Seattle welcome. Weather was nice enough to cooperate with us. Yeah, my name is Mike Siebert. I am a lead developer partner manager with the Xbox Developer Relations team. And I'm going to talk to you all today a little bit about Xbox, where it's going as a platform, and how you all as indie developers can be a part of that. And so Xbox has been on an evolutionary journey as a platform, and it may not have been evolving in a direction that I think everyone expected, but I think it's moving in a direction that the industry needs. When we talk to developers about what they're looking for, what they want, we hear the same things. They want more people to be able to play their games, and they want people to be able to engage with their games more. And so, in today's industry, this inevitably means being able to reach gamers on the devices that they want to play for, basically having your game available on multiple different devices, different platforms. And so when we look at our job as a platform, as Xbox, this is what we've been working to deliver. And as our promise to developers is really, how can we set up developers like yourselves for success in achieving that goal of reaching as many players as possible. And this is not the start of something new, but rather the continuation of a journey, like I said, that we've been on for a while now. And so here we're just looking back really quickly at the last, 50 years of Microsoft. And when you look at the history of Microsoft, it's a company that has built platforms that other people, other developers have then gone on to find their success at. And so you go back all the way to the early days of gaming on DOS, to the transition to Windows and the birth of DirectX, all the way to the release of Xbox. Gaming has been a really big part of that story from the very early days. This is not just the story of Microsoft. This is also the collective journey of us as players, as users, as game developers, and really as a games industry as a whole. And I think, for those of you who are in this room, you can probably look at this timeline and this slide, and you can identify, kind of different points in your own journey along the way here. As I was putting this slide together, the one I keep coming back to is back in 1995 when I first saw Ski Free for the first time at a Sam's Club, I think, on a Windows 95 machine. And for some reason, that's just a memory that's always sort of stuck with me. And I think that that's true for a lot of people. Like, they have memories in gaming that they kind of carry with them. And so, for gaming, as for other platforms that Microsoft has built, the common themes are: how do we make development easier, and how do we enable people to reach more users, reach more engagement? That's our goal. And today I'll be talking about some of the ways that we're helping game developers do that. But before we get into the talk itself, our story starts today with the players. And so here's where we're at with that story at Xbox. And I don't think we're wired for audio, but there's some really snappy music that plays along with this. So you'll just have to kind of visualize that. So you may have seen this campaign before. This is an Xbox campaign, which we've been rolling out, since last year. But the reality is that this has been something that at Xbox we've been building towards for a while now. Xbox has long been about more than just the console. Now, as an industry in general, we're seeing the walls come down where players don't only identify anymore as console gamers or PC gamers or mobile gamers. And we started to see the rise of multi-device gamers, basically people who, play games on different, devices at different times, to help gaming kind of fit within their lives. And so from consoles to PCs to handhelds to cloud streaming devices, Xbox games are now able to reach more players on more screens in more places than ever before. And really the core of that is about letting the gamers play the games that they want to play when they want to play them on the devices that they want to play them So the reason why we're here and the reason why we're talking to all of you is, to be perfectly honest, we're aware that when people first think of Xbox, the first thing that comes to mind is not the Xbox, or is not PC. They traditionally think of the Xbox console first and foremost. But the Xbox experience on Windows is not something new. I think we've had the Xbox app as it exists now for almost a decade, actually, which is crazy to say. And this experience is also evolving to help power this multi-device world. So we've been making some updates to the experience on Windows to adapt the user experience to match the size and type of the screen that the user is on. And so, if you're playing on a desktop PC or you're accessing the app on a desktop, you get the large kind of open-ended experience that you may be familiar with if you've used the Xbox app before. But we're also providing a much more streamlined experience on handhelds thanks to a compact mode, which we just rolled out earlier this year. And along with that, we've also added full support for controller navigation. So you can actually move, from your game library to browsing games in the store to playing games, all using just a controller, never having to use a mouse or keyboard. And within this experience, all of the content you want, whether that's a single purchase, streaming games, free-to-play, Game Pass titles, all of the DLC, they all live side by side in that same experience. And we've actually even extended it to include games that you have installed on your PC from other storefronts as well, so that you have a complete view of your game library all in one place. And so, when you build a game and publish a PC game with the Microsoft GDK, whether it's a brand new title or you're looking to bring over an existing title from your back catalog, this is where your game will appear. And it's, presenting a single consolidated view across, all of these different endpoints where users in the Xbox ecosystem can play and experience your games. And so this is really very much an experience that's built for gamers first. But it's not just about, having console games on one side and PC games on the other side. It's really about also respecting the investment that players have made in building a collection of their favorite games and progressing through, countless hours in those games. I'm sure we've all had an experience before where, we've moved to a new console, we picked up a new device, and there's a game that we've been playing before that we want to continue playing, but then we have to go buy it again. And when we go buy that game again, then, our previous achievements or save games didn't carry over to the new device. So we've got to start over again. If there are any Skyrim players in the house, you've all probably heard, hey, you're finally awake a million times at this point. But, what if you could live in a world where you would be able to just pick up that game on one device, stop playing, move to a different device, and then your progress carries over from where you were before. And so this is really what we're trying to work towards. It starts with, guaranteed unified entitlements across both PC and console. Add on top of that, things like cross-progression for cloud saves and achievements, access to game streaming. So even if you're not near a dedicated gaming device, you can still access your game library, still be able to pick up your progress from where you left off. This is really what the promise is of Xbox Play Anywhere. When we talk about this feature, this is really the experience that we're looking to enable from a player standpoint. This is just one of the ways in which Xbox is changing to meet the needs of gamers today. So currently in the Xbox catalog, we have about 1,200 Xbox Play Anywhere or XPA-enabled titles. And that number is continuing to grow thanks to developers like yourselves. We've heard from players loud and clear that, this is a feature that they really want. And I'll get a little bit later in the presentation into some metrics that we see around the engagement for XPA titles. But it's something that we at Xbox are very committed to. And actually, all of the first-party Xbox Game Studios titles support XPA and will continue to support XPA going forward. And so we hope that, you will join us in building and publishing XPA titles. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that, we have been working with middleware partners and others to enable you to do that. But, improvements aren't just for players, and ultimately it has to start with the developers. And we are committed to improving the lives of developers. And so talking a little bit about, how developers build their games for console today. It used to be that building an Xbox console game was a very focused activity. It's a closed ecosystem with a closed SDK. There are APIs that are very specific to that device. And porting your game usually required a very focused effort in terms of how do I make an Xbox console game. But we've been driving with some of the improvements to the developer experience to the point where about 85% of the API surface between PC and Xbox console is actually now the same. So what this has actually manifested in is today it's actually far easier to start building an Xbox PC game using the GDK, and then starting to add the specialized layers or interfaces that you would then need for console to that game. And so, this is why we recommend now for developers that are entering the Xbox ecosystem to start with their PC version. And then within that, build as much commonality as you are able to into the game. Things like controller support, which obviously has benefits on PC as well as console. And that way, when you go to create your Xbox console version, you're not having to, reinvent the wheel. You're just having to focus on what are the specific aspects of development that are unique to console that I need to do specifically for console. And then a lot of that work that you've already done on the PC side carries over. And our goal for this is really we're trying to get to a place where, bringing your game from PC to Xbox console doesn't feel like you're porting to a whole new platform, but rather it's just another target, another build for your PC version. And so speaking of PC, we've seen a lot of growth in the PC space in the games industry over the last couple of years. A big part of that is actually being driven by a new segment in PC gaming, which are gaming handhelds. And so new models of these PC gaming handhelds are popping up all the time. For any of you all who were watching or paying attention to CES in Las Vegas earlier this year, you saw a whole range of new PC handhelds being announced from a wide variety of OEMs. And then Xbox earlier this year in collaboration with ASUS actually also announced our own co-branded handhelds, the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X. Actually, just last week at Gamescom, we revealed that the devices will be releasing on October 16th. So less than 2 months from today, you all will be able to go buy one of these and be able to hold one in your hands and play them for yourselves, which is actually really, really cool. This is a great collaboration between Xbox and ASUS, leveraging our combined strengths to bring a distinctly Xbox-first experience to the PC handheld market. And really, again, with that focus of, how do we put the player at the center of all of this? And so we've spent the last 20 years optimizing and building, gaming-specific operating systems, mostly for console. And recently, we've been working with the Windows team to bring over the best of the Xbox experience on console and merge that with the benefits of Windows, the backwards compatibility, the support for a wide range of peripherals, all of the great things about Windows PC gaming, to try and really build the best possible operating system for gaming. And because this device will leverage that open ecosystem on PC, and allow you to play games on other storefronts as well, this is really, we think, the best device for playing games on the go on Windows. Gives you the broadest range of access to your entire library of games. The device is also cloud enhanced, and so it will have full support for Xbox game streaming, and those games will actually be surfaced in your library. So if a game is not available in the catalog, but you have the ability to stream that game, you'll be able to do so directly to the device, and it'll actually feel like a just native integrated part of the experience overall. Totally seamless. So in this slide, we're getting a little bit into some of the specifications for the two devices. And so with the Xbox Ally, this is the sort of more broad SKU, a little bit lower powered, but will be available at a lower price point to account for that. Whereas the Xbox Ally X is the performance SKU. This is the device for the gamer that wants to have the maximum performance with their handheld PC gaming. Both of these devices have been actually co-designed in collaboration with the Xbox design team, hardware design team, and ASUS. And so both of them will feature, Xbox button iconography, the offset joysticks, contoured grips, a lot of the things that if you're familiar at all with the Xbox controller, you'll see a lot of that in these devices as well. They will also both feature an Xbox button. And so similar to the Xbox button on the Xbox controller, this will bring up a guide menu that will provide quick access to social features and the types of things that you would normally expect from an Xbox guide. But with these also being Windows devices, you'll also have access to things like power settings and other useful features that you would find beneficial on a PC. And the devices will be available, as I mentioned, on October 16th. Initially, we're going to be launching in 30 plus countries, and that includes US, Canada, Mexico, Western Europe, Asia. And then, after the initial launch period, we'll actually be expanding the available regions to other markets where the ROG Ally devices are available currently today. And so that includes regions like Brazil, Indonesia, India, Thailand. And actually, from a region standpoint, these devices are actually going to be even more broadly available than Xbox consoles. And so this presents a great opportunity for us to be able to start reaching players in new markets. And so what does development mean for a PC gaming handheld? Well, the good news is that these devices play PC games natively. And so, if you have an existing PC build of your game, that game will actually work out of the box on this particular device. There's no need to build against a specific hardware profile or anything to get your game up and running. Now, that being said, there are some steps that you can take to provide a better, more optimized experience for players that want to play a game using a PC handheld. The first of which, obvious one, is native controller support. The main input mode for these gaming handhelds, whether it be the Xbox Allies or really any PC gaming handheld, is going to be controller. And so if you have a PC title and you are already supporting native input for controller, then you're already set. But if not, then it's something that I would definitely encourage you to think about as part of development for your PC version. And again, this will be beneficial for anyone who wants to play your game on a PC handheld. But even for players who just want to use a controller with their desktop, having native controller support, it goes a long way to supporting those players' experiences and making it better. Flexible UI, and so with the gaming handheld, you're looking at a screen size that's about 7 inches or so, and it's going to be played roughly 1 to 1.5 feet from the player's face. Very different experience than someone who's maybe sitting in front of a monitor or sitting in a living room with their television like 6 feet away from it. And so, having UI in your game that is flexible, works well regardless of input modality or, is suitable or adjustable based on, the distance that the player is going to be playing from the screen. And then displays the right iconography based on what type of input device that they're using, showing like WASD keys, maybe if they're using mouse and keyboard, but automatically switching that iconography to controller if they have a controller plugged in. That, again, helps set your game up for success when users decide to pick up on a gaming handheld. It feels like the experience has been tailored to them and the device that they're choosing to play on. And then lastly, being what we like to call being a good handheld citizen or device-centric considerations. Keeping in mind the Xbox Ally, like a lot of other PC gaming handhelds, these devices are meant to be played in portable mode. They're meant to be played on the go, so not necessarily tethered to power. And so thinking about battery life, how can you optimize your game to provide the maximum battery life for players when they're not plugged in, allowing for offline play, having optimized graphics profiles for those devices. You may not necessarily want to have all of the settings turned all the way up to epic. if a user is choosing to play on a device that's, operating on a battery that is maybe more of a sort of mid-level spec. And then also, things like if your game has pre-game launchers or other types of interactive menus or things like that, making sure that those are interactable using a controller, that you don't have to, jump through a lot of hoops as a player to get the game up and running initially. That first launch experience on the handheld and how smooth an experience the player has getting into the game, that really affects, their perception of just how tailored that game is to that device and, whether or not that constitutes a good experience on that particular device. So definitely something that's worth considering. We actually have a handheld developer portal. So there is a link in the upper right-hand corner. And if you go to that portal, it'll actually have a lot of information about not just the Xbox Ally devices themselves, but also different best practices for how to tailor your game towards a sort of handheld profile. And so, once you have your once you have a PC version of your game, in terms of shipping that game on Xbox PC or to the Xbox experience on PC, really there's a couple of just key steps there along the way. The first thing is, making sure that, again, you've got that initial build, having a new target, whether that be Xbox console or the Xbox PC app, and then thinking through things like the UX for controller input, making sure that that's all in place, having native controller support, Xbox network sign-in, so being able to log into an Xbox account. And that unlocks a lot of the features associated with XPA, like cloud saves, achievements, multiplayer for those of you who are interested in shipping multiplayer games or want to support multiplayer play. And then lastly, once you've got your game package ready, you can then go to the Microsoft Partner Center portal, which is our game developer portal for all things gaming at Microsoft. And then through there, you can submit your game build, create your store listings, and then ship your game. There's also some processes around XRs. We have a certification process for releasing games to the Microsoft Store, both for console and PC titles. There's more information available on learn.microsoft.com about our certification requirements. And if any of you have questions about Xbox certification and what that all entails, happy to answer those in the Q&A portion. So as I mentioned earlier, players are gaming on more devices than ever before. Our business is changing. And when we look at younger generations like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, over 50% of them are actually gaming on multiple devices today. So, the future is now in the sense that the next generations are largely in this multi-device gaming category already. And they're being very vocal about it. What matters to them is experience. And, like with Netflix and Spotify and YouTube and other apps that they've grown up with, the important thing is not, the specific device that these are available or any sort of exclusivity, but rather that, these experiences are able to roam with them. And along with that, any sort of playlists or settings or other kind of things that they would just expect to be in all of these places. And gaming needs to, we think, work in the same way. As gamers don't bucket themselves as console gamers and PC gamers, it's important for us to then think about okay, well, how do we make these games then flexible to players that are coming to the platform with this mindset? And so this is really what Xbox Play Anywhere is about. For players, it's about being able to buy a game once and then play that game anywhere within the Xbox ecosystem. And it's about that progress being able to carry with you, regardless of whether you're choosing to play on a console, a PC, gaming handheld PC, via the cloud, whatever that choice may be. But Xbox Play Anywhere is not purely just about player benefit. We've also seen those benefits carry over to studios and publishers as well. And so recently we actually did a study of first-party Xbox Game Studios titles where we were measuring engagement for titles that had XPA support versus titles that did not. And through some experimentation, we were able to determine that XPA actually resulted in about a 20% engagement lift across the first-party XGS titles. And so, just by virtue of having the option of players being able to roam their progress and their ownership of the game across devices, we found that players actually played the games more. Which intuitively, if you think about it, just, hey, I can play this game in more places. It's giving me the opportunity to play more. And so it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And so we're updating the guidance that we have in our readiness materials to developers so that, we can capture these trends. And, coming to events and being able to share some of this information is one of the ways in which we're looking to do that. And so talking a little bit about player progression and what that actually means. I think most people, when they hear player progression, the first thing that comes to mind is the game save, which is true. But there's actually more to it than that. And so this talks a little bit about some of the different aspects of player progression and what that actually means. And game saves is, again, a big part of that. You want to be able to pick up your save where you left off. But there's other elements to it as well. Achievements is a big driver in terms of engagement for a lot of players. It's being able to set those goals for, what they're able to accomplish along the way as they're playing a game, or, having a record of sort of their past accomplishments in the games that they've played. And having those achievements carry over between different devices or different endpoints that they choose to play on and really kind of persist and live with them is a big part of that as well. It's also about entitlements. And, in games that, for example, have, DLC items or DLC or cosmetic items or things that, the players really associate with their experience playing the game on one device, kind of sucks to move over to a different one and then not have those things present there as well. And so when we talk about progression and we talk about, what cross progression means, it's really inclusive of all of these things. So within the Xbox ecosystem, the way that we support this is basically all of these game saves, achievements, entitlement, it's all tied to the specific product that you're setting up within the Xbox ecosystem within Partner Center. And so just by virtue of using our tools to ship and release your game, you have the option of actually unifying this across all of the different endpoints that we offer. So in terms of the configuration part of it, it's very straightforward. There's actually really no work involved to enabling this experience, and the APIs support it natively. We've also worked with a lot of middleware partners to integrate this as part of their game save subsystems or as part of the GDK integrations in their engines, so that for developers that are choosing to use different middleware like Unity or Unreal, that process is relatively straightforward to make sure that you can release a game on Xbox PC, on Xbox console, and have those things like entitlements and game saves carry over between them. But got a couple of things. Beyond XPA, another way that you can reach more players through the ecosystem is through game streaming. Game streaming is actually a big growth area within Xbox. And we've actually seen it especially growing in markets where gaming devices, dedicated gaming hardware is actually hard to come by. And so actually one of the biggest regions, for example, that we've seen game streaming really take off in has been Brazil, which is actually the largest gaming market in South America. In Brazil, if anyone has ever tried to ship any sort of hardware or buy any hardware in Brazil, can be a little bit challenging to get things through customs, and the devices there can be relatively expensive. But there's a large portion of the audience there that does have broadband internet access, and so we've actually seen quite a bit of uptake in terms of streaming from players in that region. And so in that way, streaming is partially about providing access to games for players when they're not at home, not in front of their dedicated devices, but it's also about expanding the audience to players that maybe wouldn't have access to a dedicated device, but would still want to play your game otherwise. And so streaming, so by default, Xbox console games work as streaming titles, meaning that there's actually no modifications that you need to make to a game that releases on Xbox console for that game to be streamable. And through initiatives that we've launched last year, like Xbox Stream Your Own Game, we're actually enabling players to be able to stream games that they own without even having a console. And we've actually started to see the rise of actually basically streaming only players within the ecosystem, which has actually been really, really cool. And I'm getting a time warning, so I'm going to try and quickly move through the rest of this. Now, we also have some additional guidance around how you can optimize games for streaming. As I mentioned, if you have an Xbox console game, it will work out of the box. But there are some additional optimizations that you can make, from adding touch support to things like latency awareness, and modifying the size or layout of your UI based on the device form factor it's being streamed to. So definitely recommend checking out the documentation on learn.microsoft.com. We have a lot of really great developer guidance there about that. I touched on middleware integrations a little bit ago. This is just a wall of logos, some of which will probably be familiar to folks in the room. The key takeaway here is that we've worked with a lot of the biggest middleware providers for gaming tools to really make sure that support for Xbox PC, the GDK, Xbox console is offered. And so if there are dependencies that you're working with, there are versions of their software that are available that support all of these platforms. See? A couple quick notes on ID at Xbox. So one of the ways in which we are looking to empower independent developers is through the Independent Developer at Xbox program. And this program enables creators to unleash their creativity by self-publishing games on all of our platforms. The program has been going now for more than a decade. We've shipped over 5,000 games through this program. And I think key thing for this room is that we've paid out over $5 billion to independent developers in royalty payments through this program as well. So it's not just generating a lot of games, but it's actually driving players and revenue for creators, which is really, really cool to see. And there's no reason any of you can't be a part of this. Again, it's a self-publishing program, so you don't actually have to have a publisher for your game. You can self-publish, and similar as you would on Steam, go through that process, apply, and if you are accepted, then you can release a game on Xbox. So to get started with this, we have a website, www.xbox.com/ID. This as a portal where you can register to be part of the ID at Xbox program, submit your game, and should it be accepted, then you're on your way to developing and releasing an Xbox title. And through there, we also have a number of different support channels that are available to you if you have questions, if you need dev support. There's even a pipeline there for if you want to pitch your game for Game Pass or the Developer Acceleration Program, or a number of other different sort of funding or other kind of partnership programs. All of that can be done through this portal as well after you've applied for ID. All right, and this is only the beginning. Just hope this gives you a taste of, directionally where we're going at Xbox, some of the opportunities that are available within our ecosystem. Would love to have a conversation with any of you about Xbox Play Anywhere, Windows handhelds, ID at Xbox, basically how we can, build, work together to help you find success and find an audience for your game on our platform. And so just a couple of quick takeaways. Please, if you're interested in bringing your game to Xbox, join the ID at Xbox program. That'll be your first step in the process. As you're thinking about, how do you support the entire ecosystem, things like XPA are going to make your game that much more appealing, just that it will be accessible across any of the devices that people may choose to play on. Optimize your game for PC handhelds. This is a growing segment. There's, I think, a ton of opportunity there. And just thinking about how you can provide players on those devices with a good experience up front, I think will help you then find success with that audience as it continues to grow. And then lastly, I'm around at the show. If you have questions, we'll be doing a brief Q&A after this. There's a few other Xbox representatives around as well. And yeah, please come talk to us. We also have Discord that you can join and come chat with the team. And we're interested in your questions. We're also interested in your feedback and how we can learn and grow and improve from that as well. So with that, just a couple of quick plugs for our Discord, also our game dev YouTube channel, where we will post varying talks on different game development subjects. Um, and then I just want to close with a brief thank you. Again, we're here because of developers like yourselves. And here's to hopefully 50 more years of us being able to work together and collaborate and build cool platforms for people to play games on. All right. And with that, Jimmy. And so the questions are going to be recorded. If you want to step up to that microphone, or if you have a question, we can hand it around. But yeah, what do you have for me? Let's gentlemen go first, then we can hand Mike.
Yeah, so my question's related to the pricing of those mobile handhelds, because I'm trying to understand how an indie developer can target a market for a device that probably starts at around between $500 and $800. Most of the time, the indie developers that I'm working with are working with really small projects. Some of them are just coming out of college, and they might have some really good stuff to show off, but it'd be hard to. I actually have no idea what to tell an indie developer. Is like, how are you going to target a market that is going to spend this much on a device?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just a couple things there. First, we have not announced the pricing for the devices yet. So I just want to be clear that there is no.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And so we've announced dates, not prices yet. What I'll say with regards to just sort of PC handhelds more generally, and obviously the Xbox Ally and the Ally X are specific devices that Microsoft is releasing in partnership with ASUS. But we are really looking at this as a segment, and not just thinking about this in terms of like you would a console, where it's like, these are the devices we want you to go build just for these things. All of the work that we're really doing in the Windows space is more about the segment and not just the specific devices. Those devices are Microsoft's entry point into that. But there's a range of PC handheld devices that are out there today. Some of them are below that $500 price point. And so what we want really for developers to take away from this is not necessarily just, hey, go care about our own device. I mean, we would love if you care about our own device, but really think about just the potential that this form factor represents in terms of, helping you find an audience. And I think if you are thinking about optimizations that you then can make for your PC versions of your game that are more suitable for a small screen experience, that can help players who are using maybe a sort of lower end SKU of those devices as well, right? It also is, I think, going to be really important to think about just generally what are your sort of target specs or min specs. And I think you all know this, that the heavier your game is, the fewer sort of avenues are available to you in terms of potential devices that you can target. And so really having a kind of clear head in terms of like, well, here's where my audience is, and therefore I have to target, this min spec. That can also be really helpful in terms of, how do you reach players that may be playing on a sort of lower end, more affordable device as well. All right, thank you. Actually, I think this gentleman's in one, and then we'll.
How many are? Yeah, but you're
Here. You're queued up, so you go ahead, and then if you could hand him the mic afterwards.
okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, my name is Alejandro. So I'm building an ecosystem for indie devs, and something I'd love to learn is what resources are underutilized in the ID at Xbox program that devs should know about.
What resources are underutilized? That's a great question. I think I'll say a couple of things. The first is the Discord. And so, not just the kind of conversations that you may have with developers or with members of the ID team, but actually within the Microsoft Game Dev Discord, we actually host a weekly office hours session where we'll bring in varying speakers from across the Xbox engineering team, developer relations, design. And these are really great sessions. Actually, my friend John, who's in the audience over there, has spoken at one of these office hours before. It's a really great way for ID developers to come and just learn and get a little bit more insight, from actual members of the team, people working on the products, without having to go set a meeting or without having to know those people. And so I would say that that's one. And then the other thing, and this is something that if you're in the ID at Xbox program, you may be familiar with, but the Xbox Developer Forums is a really great resource in terms of being able to find answers to technical questions, being able to get connected with support, resources. It's one of those cases where, I think a lot of the time developers maybe don't think of that as kind of the first stop when they have a problem or when they need to talk to somebody, because it's a forum. You kind of get the sense that, oh well, who's listening in this forum? Who am I going to get answers from? What's the quality of that? But we have members of our Xbox Advanced Technology group that man the forums. They're really responsive to any questions that come up, and I'd say the degree of support that I've seen for the forums is really, really high. So that would be the second one.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. And then I think this gentleman was waiting, so if you want to hand him the mic.
So I was wondering, is it smart to port a game to Xbox One, or is it smart to just ditch it and go to the Xbox Series S and S if you're planning to release a game like in the late 2020s? And also, how hard is it to pitch your game to the Xbox ID and then try to figure out how to get your final game rating? Because I'm not sure if you guys go through ESRB or IARC or whatever it's called. And another thing I was wondering is, like I told you during the roundtable thing about Bobber, how do most video game developers add exclusive things to one console and not the others? And is it hard to do all of the above?
Yeah, so there's a couple questions there. I'll start with the submission process. And so if you want to get your game onto Xbox and submit through the ID at Xbox program, there's a form basically that you fill out online at the address before. I think it was xbox.com/ID. As part of that, you submit information about your game. Again, there's a form you fill out. Also, any sort of supporting materials like presentations, a game build, if that's something that you have. And then that goes through a review process. And, once it's reviewed and signed off on, then it will be approved. And then you will be able to ship your game on Xbox at that point. In terms of Xbox One, I think it really is going to depend on the game. There is an existing audience still on Xbox One. I think, we see a lot of developers, more and more actually, we're seeing developers that are not choosing to target Xbox One. But there are still some that do. And in a lot of cases, it's because, they want to reach the largest addressable market as they possibly can. But again, adding another console is going to, increase the complexity that you have in terms of test surface. It's a lower powered SKU, obviously, than Series X and S. And so, that's going to create constraints maybe for some developers to get their game running and performant on those devices. I really think it depends on the individual developer in terms of being able to make that decision for themselves. But I would say that, Xbox One, it has some benefits for some developers, but there are also challenges that come along with that. And for a lot of developers who are releasing new games, they just don't see the ROI in that, which is fine, I think. And then your last question was exclusive content. I don't know that there's that much scrutiny that we have around like something like an exclusive. Let's say if you wanted to have a character, for example, that was on Xbox but not on other platforms or anything along those lines. We do have a parity clause as part of our developer agreements. I think it's really more focused around the idea that, the game on Xbox is fully functional. It has a lot of the same capabilities as the games on other platforms, the same game on other platforms. But I think that if you wanted to do something along the lines of like the classic example that comes to mind is like Soul Calibur 2 platform specific characters. If you want to do something along those lines, then yeah, I think that that's something that we're open to. It's really more in cases where it's like, hey, this feature is in other platform versions of the game and not in the Xbox version that, may cause issues with your submissions.
I also mentioned like the rating process.
Yes, rating process. And so we do require ratings for games to be released. And then typically those will go through IARC if you're trying to get ratings across like a number of different rating boards. It will support that. Yep.
Um, I was curious about what were the as indie developers were on very tight budgets, and I was wondering about any like licensing requirements or things like that to be part of your Xbox program.
Yes, so great question. So as far as joining the ID at Xbox program, it's free of charge, no cost. There is a nominal fee for creating the Partner Center account, which I believe is $100. I don't know if we're waiving that fee anymore. I would need to go back and check, but that is the only cost that's associated with it. Also, approval for the ID at Xbox process, like once you've gotten a game submitted and that concept has been approved, you do also receive an Xbox Series development kit as part of that process, and so you wouldn't have to pay the license fee for the first development kit. If you did need to order additional dev kits for other devs or for test purposes, those each do have a license fee associated with them. But the first one you would get for free as part of being approved for the program. Well, thank you.